The recognition of the state of Palestine is expected to take centre stage as world leaders gather for the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Britain, Canada, Australia and Portugal all formally recognise Palestine at the weekend. At least another 6 nations, including France, are expected to do so this evening at a conference on the two-state solution, which is being boycotted by the United States and Israel.
The UN has been hosting world leaders for a top-level meeting week for 80 years now. But this year could be one of the most consequential since the UN recognised the State of Israel.
I believe that there will be a clear demonstration that the overwhelming majority of the countries in the world recognize the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination, recognize that there must be a Palestinian state and recognize it.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says recognizing a Palestinian state rewards Hamas. But France, a co-sponsor of today's event, says Israel's own actions prove Hamas is not the issue.
When the Knesset decided to start the settlements again in West Bank, it was the best evidence of the fact that they don't want to fight against Hamas. There is no Hamas in West Bank. They just want to destroy the existing political bodies and the possibility of a two-state.
The Taoiseach accused the Israeli government of trying to undermine the possibility of a two-state solution.
The conference today is designed to try and create a pathway to a two-state solution, but we can see what's happening in the West Bank is designed to undermine any prospect of a two-state solution. I think there are many people within Israel who are now very, very disillusioned with Prime Minister Netanyahu's government, with the behaviour of Minister Smotrich and Ben Gvir, who clearly have had a genocidal intent from day one.
While the Taoiseach and Minister for Foreign Affairs said economic sanctions from the EU and political pressure from the US might change Israel's course.
President Trump is somebody who has said he doesn't like war. He said he likes peace. Now's the chance to show it. And I think there's a real opportunity here if President Trump can listen and engage with the Arab states and how you can actually have a viable plan for a two-state solution that doesn't involve Hamas or any other horrific illegal terrorist organisation. If he can do that, and if Europe can take economic action, I think there are 2 concrete moves that could be taken or that we could at least build momentum towards this week.
But that's 2 big ifs. Meanwhile, facts on the ground are eroding the possibility of a two-state solution at a growing pace. Sean Whelan, RTE News, New York.
Senior Palestinian officials have hailed the raft of countries recognising the state of Palestine as a moment of historic jubilation. Our Europe editor Tony Connolly and cameraman Bram Verbeke are tonight in the West Bank. They've been getting reaction from Palestinians about what this recognition will mean for day-to-day life.
Far from the diplomatic huddles in New York, Palestinians have responded cautiously to the news. While the PLO declared an independent state in 1988, the trappings of statehood are barely visible. Palestine only has observer status at the UN. What little sovereignty the Palestinian Authority enjoys under the Oslo Peace Accords is exercised at the whim of Israel, whose official policy now is that there will never be a Palestinian state. Many people were reluctant to express their emotions out of fear, they say, of Israeli repercussions.
Of course, this gives me a lot of hope, and it makes me, of course, happy. Inshallah, things will get better in the future, and more countries will recognize Palestine as a state.
It gives me hope, but I'm a little bit afraid of Israel's reaction because it's going to try to stop the world voice. So we don't know what it's going to do.
Israel has threatened to annex parts of the West Bank in retaliation, and even if there's no formal annexation, Jewish settlers have been violently forcing Palestinians off their land at an alarming rate. Despite that, senior Palestinian figures regard recognition as a desperately needed morale boost.
It's time now the world believes what we have said long ago, but also to believe that this is no longer an Arab-Israeli conflict. It's the world versus Israel conflict. And we want the world to say no to Israel.
In Israel, families of the Hamas hostages in Gaza expressed scepticism at best.
This will not change a single thing. We are on the verge of the 2-year mark of this catastrophe that both Israelis and Palestinians are suffering from. And recognizing a Palestinian state will not bring back a single hostage, nor will it save a single Palestinian baby. Because if someone is killed in Gaza, having a Palestinian passport will not bring them back to life.
Palestinians are bracing themselves for Israel's response, as are those countries who've joined nearly 150 others in declaring that the two-state solution must survive.
Well, let's speak now to Sean Whelan, who's in New York, and also Tony Connolly, who's in the West Bank. Sean, to you first. There's growing support there for a Palestinian state, for recognition of that. What is the latest this evening?
Well, this big conference being hosted by France and Saudi Arabia gets going in about 2 hours' time. Most of the countries in the United Nations are already recognising a Palestinian state. And so what we've seen over the past couple of days is the United Kingdom, and now we expect tonight France to finally formally recognise it. The two big nuclear powers of Europe, but also the two countries that historically held sway after World War I in that area, which is now Israel, Lebanon, Syria, the old colonial powers, if you like, of the 20th century that were involved in the creation of Palestine in those 1967 borders, and have been involved ever since, I guess, joined, of course, by other European countries. Belgium, Luxembourg tonight also expected to recognise the country. But really, after that, what? I mean, yes, you can recognise a state that doesn't exist, but what do you do with that recognition? And that's why I think you had that frustration and urgency being expressed by the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach that something is done with this momentum that, as you say, is ongoing now and will run through this conference tonight and presumably during the rest of this week as well, to recognise a Palestinian state, but also do something about it. The Taoiseach in particular using very strong language about trying to get European countries to finally do something, to vote on economic sanctions against Israel, and also speaking of trying to get the Arab states to convince President Trump, with whom they are very friendly, to do something politically to lean on the Israelis. But the Israelis seem to be pushing towards a one-state solution, and the more states here start recognising the state of Palestine, the faster Israel seems to be moving towards establishing a one-state solution through facts on the ground.
And Tony, you're there in the West Bank. What is the view there of how Israel might react to this growing support for a Palestinian state?
Well, I mean, they could react at a lower diplomatic level. Now, remember when Ireland recognised Palestine back in December last year, you had Sonia McGuinness, the Irish Prime Minister, ambassador to Israel, who underwent a very public and fairly humiliating reprimand at the Foreign Ministry. She had to watch videos of the Hamas attacks. 8 Norwegian diplomats were deported after Norway joined Ireland and Spain in recognising Palestine in December of last year. Norway's representative office here in the West Bank was closed. It remains closed. Ireland's office actually remains open. But the bigger bazooka, if you like, that Israel can take is annexing some part or a large part of the West Bank. And that's something that Bezalel Smotrich, this far-right finance minister, has been pushing for. Benjamin Netanyahu relies on his support to stay in government, and he's pushing for Israel to annex 84% of the West Bank. Now, Israel was understood to have wanted to have a cabinet meeting a couple of weeks ago on the subject of annexation. That was dropped, as I understand it, after an intervention from the United Arab Emirates, one of those Arab countries that Sean mentioned that does have diplomatic and commercial links with Israel through the Abraham Accords. And they were saying any annexation of the West Bank would be a red line. And that is something I think would give Israel pause. But on the overall prospect of what can actually tangibly emerge from this process, well, a year ago when Ireland did that recognition, there was still a hope then that there could be a ceasefire in Gaza, that there could be some kind of peace process, and recognition would give Palestine moral support in those peace negotiations. But of course, there doesn't seem to be any prospect of a ceasefire or peace negotiations.
Tony Connolly from the West Bank and Sean Whelan from New York. Thank you both.